Isn't that awesome? A very special intro for a very special intro of sports episode rather of Sports Talk Philadelphia, as we are celebrating 15 years. Yes, 15 years of Sports Talk Philadelphia being on LaSalle TV. Hello, you know me. I'm Tyler Harper. I'm a junior, class of 2016. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why are you introducing yourself in your class year? Well, that's because today we have a very special panel here today. 3 former producers of Sports Talk Philadelphia, varying from the very beginning to just last year. So why don't we start right here to my left. Matt York, class of 2002, one of the original creators of Sports Talk Philadelphia. So thank you for being on the show.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me back. This is a special episode.
All right, and there we got Kevin Casey Feeney, who of course was producer, now class of 2006, and now producer at Comcast Sportsnet. So Casey, welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Absolute pleasure to be here. 15 years, it's unbelievable, but I'm so thrilled to be here.
And lastly, down there on the end, you guys know this guy already. He's been on a couple times this year, but producer last year for Sports Talk Philadelphia. I was lucky enough to help him out with that. But Andrew Albert, of course now at Philly.com. But Andrew, thank you for taking time to be here as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Tyler.
So it's still amazing to me that 15 years, like that can go by so fast. I mean, obviously, we all know that. But Matt, starting with you again, one of the show's original creators. So just how did Sports Talk Philadelphia come to be?
Well, I mean, all credit goes also to a guy by the name of Keith Anderson, who also helped me kind of co-create the show and get it off the ground, and as well Tracy Reynolds as well. They did a great job. And really the credit belongs to our beloved Tanya Ellis, who for some reason, against her better judgment, let us start this show. So, and I'm sure she's been kicking herself since. Oh,
I'm sure a lot of sentences about like people who are give gratitude towards Tanya are with against her better judgment. She let us do this for some reason. But yeah, so the 3 of you come together, you start to get this idea together, and talk about like planning that at first, like episodes and etc.
So we started this kind of experiment on the purpose that we wanted to actually get some press passes to go to some games, and so we thought
very noble.
Yeah, exactly. It really was. I mean, that's generally how most experiments start, right? And so the ulterior motive was to get into some games, and we didn't have any money to do so. So,
well, I mean, you were college kids.
Exactly. So the best way to do was produce and edit and shoot your own show, and so we did. And what was neat was we were kind of on the dawn of the inception of the sports talk format on television, and so taking kind of the radio long-form conversation and bringing it to TV. So while Comcast around that same time started a program that was similar called Daily News Live at the time, we also started that, and in this area at least, it was one of the first kind of long-form conversational sports talk shows. Now, I'm not sure it had a lot of value to the overall sports community, but for us, it was a really good time.
That's cool. And that thing, Casey, coming to you, like, when you came into LaSalle, like, did sports talk, like, I don't always catch your eye, like, as a sports fan, like, you were interested in doing something with that program?
Well, I always knew that my 2 loves initially when I was a kid were sports and television. So I always knew I wanted to do something that was involved in at least one of them, and I thankfully was able to figure out how to marry the 2 together. I actually have to say, coming into school, I had no idea. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I just knew I kind of wanted to do sports and I kind of wanted to do television. And then thankfully, Tanya kind of took me under her wing and yelled at me a bunch until I figured things out. And then basically started out with doing crew and figured it out and kind of worked behind the scenes, and then finally got in front. And seeing the guys who were here before me, the Dave Murphys of the world, Justin Daniels, those guys kind of showed me the ropes. And then my group, so to speak, Ben Rosehart and Kevin Legowski and company kind of followed after that, Matt Giuliano, so some good guys, and we just had a good time. I mean, I like to think that this show is about basically having a good time, and there's just cameras here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I always go to think about it. Now, Andrew, I'm going to start with this. You're from upper, like, New York area, around
Syracuse, yeah, way upstate.
So first, like, what brought you to LaSalle, and 2, like, what brought you to, like, wanting to talk about Philly sports?
Well, I've had some family in the Philly area, so we came down for Army-Navy football games. I fell in love with Philly, and I was actually an Eagles fan because of Donovan McNabb, because he got drafted when I was 5 or 6, so it was kind of like a natural progression to a sports team. But my cousin told me to check out LaSalle. I loved it. My brother Jerry, and he said they had an internship with the Eagles, and that's all it took. I never got it, but that's all it took for me to get here. So I got on campus, and Dave Grzybowski, who hosted the show before me, kind of took me under his wing and didn't let me not show up to crew and kind of get the process moving. And he took me out to events and stuff like that. And it's fun. It's a whole lot of fun, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. But at the end of the day, like you guys said, it's guys and girls talking sports and having fun on set.
Yeah, so Matt, I want to go back to you again. Those early episodes, like what went into like formatting from what you can remember about, like, was it just as simple as just talking sports? And then like we were talking actually before the cameras were rolling about how you got B-roll. So if you want to go into that
Sure.
a little bit as well, just early, just planning of sports talk throughout the week, and then when
Back
the cameras
then,
were on air.
the preparation took forever. So we would spend an inordinate amount of time trying to get B-roll, just simply putting a VHS tape into a television, any random television, pulling off whatever we wanted from the television, bringing it here, and then splicing it together. We had some equipment that was less than optimum at the time, and so it took us a considerable amount of time. However, we endured, and therefore we were able to kind of cover nationally a larger picture of sports, and it was fun. It was a good time.
With you, Grant and Keith, like I've seen the pictures, of course, we saw the intro of the three of you just at the desk. Was it just as simple as the three of you at this just little desk with just saying like, oh, hey, what are the Phillies doing this
Sure.
week?
Well, it was a lot of conversation about what was going on in the Philly sports scene, and also how that impacted nationally, if there were any ever large stories at the time. So we would take time, and then we'd also spend some time creating some video montages and using the good skills that Sid McLeod had taught us and put that together. So it was a lot of that conversation, and really what it was the same conversation we were having sitting around in our dorm room, but as Casey said, it's just sitting around and doing it in front of television. And it seemed to take flight. One of the neatest parts for us was that often when we were out in Philadelphia, folks would stop you on the street and say, hey, you're that sports guy. And you realize that there were more people than 4 or 5 of us and people's parents and grandparents watching us. And the quick story I'll have is that one of the best things that happened about 2 or 3 years ago was I jumped on a SEPTA bus, and the SEPTA bus driver stops the bus, just kept looking at me, stops in the middle of the street and says, I figured it out. And he said, you're the sports guy who talks on the Sound Network. And here he had watched reruns a couple of years ago and had remembered me.
Wow.
And so I thought it was great. Now, I didn't get a free fare, but it was nice.
No, I just had that to look forward to, just randomly. Like, that hasn't happened to me yet, but I'll start with Casey and then maybe Andrew, if you could chime in. Like, has that ever happened to you, like just randomly being recognized on the street from LaSalle TV?
Absolutely. My story, my big story that stands out to me, it's kind of embarrassing for me, but just follow me. So my final episode of senior year, which I'm sure this is for a bunch of people here today, we kind of did our goodbyes, and I started to tear up. I'm a big emotional guy, and I'm a mess. So I was a mess, and I started to tear up at the end of the show. And so I was literally, that weekend was the Penn Relays, and I was covering it for a website at the time. And I was just out there doing my thing, interviewing athletes, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the Villanova female track athletes is kind of staring me down. I'm like, all right, yeah. And then she keeps looking at me, and I'm like, all right, this is getting a little weird. And she's like, I saw you on TV the other night. You were the guy that was crying. I was like, yep, that's me. Big Smooth over here was able to work that one now. So yeah, I was known as the guy who cried on TV for a little bit, but otherwise everything was fine. And honestly, the one big difference I think now is, I guess, social media. Like our shows, we didn't have any, like, people had to email in, and at that time, it's like, hey, we really like the show, but it was like few and far between because you had to take the effort to send an email. I think at the time, like, you're still AOL dialing up probably. So, but I'm sure now, like with social media, Twitter, et cetera, you guys probably hear more feedback than we ever heard.
I'm completely dating myself, Casey, but we used to get letters. I kid you not. We got letters with a stamp from some people. Actually, there was a guy in Germantown who used to write all the time, and he would give us critiques about what he thought, or if he wanted to see something else on the show, he'd send us letters. So we had a fan club there.
Sure.
Yeah, we have a fan on Twitter who loves everything Terrell. We love that he always sends in questions to us, no matter what appearance we have on LaSalle TV. For Tanya's class here, there's they have to put on a show, and that gets put out on LaSalle TV because Tanya's got to fill out the content. But my one buddy comes up to me in the fall semester and goes, hey, do you know who Terrell Bellinger is? I'm like, yeah, he's LaSalle TV's biggest fan. Why? And he's like, oh, well, I guess we used my Twitter handle on the show, and he reached out to me, and now he told me how he loves the show. I'm like, oh, all right, hey, you got a fan, man. So I mean, Andrew, of course, knows all about that, but have
Oh,
you
yeah.
had any experiences like just being recognized or anything
I haven't
like that?
personally, but I've been out with Dave Grzybowski. We just out to eat because his Twitter handle for a while was Sports Talk
Sports
Phila
Talk Phila.
before he changed it. And before he had the show for 2 years, I had it for one after him. And we were out to eat, and people were like, "You're the Sports Talk Phila guy. Like, I recognize your hair." He gels his hair and everything. So
Yeah.
Dave had a lot more notability than I did. So, but it's cool to see even people come up to him and say that they watch the show because there is that gratification that people are watching. And
Yeah, because it was cool, and like going back to Twitter, like on the back of like those shirts, like he would put like, I mean, at least his senior year, my freshman year, like he'd put his Twitter handle on the back of the shirts because it would get recognized.
Yep.
So people, he'd be like, oh, Sports Talk Phil. I'd be like, no, that's my friend Dave.
Yep.
But and Casey, you brought up earlier about like the social media like kind of taking over. I think another big thing is YouTube. I mean, at the end of every show, I plug that you can watch the full episode. Oh, it's on YouTube. Like that's huge. Like obviously, I mean, going back, like that didn't happen. It's crazy to think that in 15 years, like how far of a jump it actually is.
It was kind of similar, like YouTube, but we would just beg kids in the dorm to watch. So
Right.
kind of similar how it works now, but completely different actually.
Right. And Casey, going back to you, in regards to obviously when you got to be at the producer level of the show, obviously the show had been on for a few years. What, like, I guess, I don't want to say maybe full-scale changes, but like tweaks and turns do you remember about the show that you would try to do to enhance? And maybe some worked out, maybe some didn't.
I think the biggest thing I remember is that we, at the end of the show, which I mean was as television is typically a complete ripoff of the sports reporters on ESPN, we would do kind of a final thought. So we kind of tweaked that a little bit and made it a little more formal. I kind of remember we wanted to do a lot of game highlights. I think in retrospect was not the greatest idea ever because this is really better situated as a talking conversational type of show. But we did a lot of like, here's what happened in the game, and then we would kind of use that as a jumping off point, whereas I think it's probably better served to just talk about sports and let the highlight shows be the highlight shows.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's kind of the best way, like, I think about it today, too, because, one, obviously, everything's copyrighted now. So, like, I can't, like, just go on YouTube and rip anything, if I could find anything, and put it out there. But on the other hand, too, this is also a weekly show. So, like, yeah, that would work well for each. In the same token, I mean, yeah, somehow highlights of a Ryan Howard homer, although that's kind of a rare sight nowadays, like, that would be nice, but in the same token, like, they could just go up and find it anytime, and the next day he could go over 4 with 3 strikeouts. So I don't know. I do like the human element of the show, the fact that it's just me and 3 other people just chiming in on whatever the case may be.
Although if you reported that he went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, you'd probably be safe for most episodes.
Yeah.
So
Nowadays,
too low?
yeah.
Sorry.
No,
too
no,
It's
no.
too soon. Sorry.
No, believe it or not, like perfect. You'd fit in today on the show. we don't hold back much. Andrew, going back to you, I know Dave really started this trend, but like bringing guests on the show, bringing back, well, some cases bringing back like LaSalle alum like Mike Sealski or John Gonzalez, but bringing in like these bigger profile names. I mean, like the highlight for us last year was I had a connection with Dan Baker, and we brought him in, and he did a Chase Utley walk up on desk. So talk about like how cool that was to kind of do that to like raise the bar even more.
It's just fun to have people that are watching will recognize. I mean, yeah, we're college kids. We're trying to establish ourselves in the market, but to have people that are already there and established and have great careers already on, it just, there's more validation to the show, and it's fun to have guys like you said, Dan Baker, pretty much breaking the soundboard. There's really nothing like that, and for them to be willing to come back and come on is just a great feeling that they're willing to help kids like us that are trying to get into the industry and willing to give their knowledge to us on how they made it and how they think we can in an ever-changing industry.
I think we'd get consensus, all of us, and agree the fact that one of the best parts about LaSalle is its community and how LaSallians always look out for one another and they take care of each other. And we enjoyed that immensely. And so some of the shows, some of the guests for the early parts of Sports Talk Philadelphia were the likes of Bill Raftery, were the likes of Gary Smith from SI. Mike Sealski actually helped co-host an episode, him and I, with those two, and did a special STP just talking to them about their experience in the sports world and also their time at LaSalle. But universally, you'll see that from one another as soon as someone hears you're from LaSalle, they say, how can I help? And that's the most rewarding part.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that. I mean, when I saw Mike Sealski at a sports journalism conference at Temple, I went up to him, introduced myself as a LaSalle grad, and I started to talk about the show. And before I even finished giving like a pitch of what the show was, he's like, "Oh, if you want me to be on, sure, absolutely." So he came in and he was so great to everyone. So I think, like you said, it is just a call back, especially for him since he went here, just a call back to those LaSallian values and just knowing that, all right, they did my part to help me. How can I help them?
And I think one of the enduring legacies of this show is that the spirit has remained the same, but every group that takes it over from the next one tries to advance it or make it special in their own way.
Right.
And that speaks to the whole LaSallian culture, but I think it just speaks to what it means to work here at LaSalle TV and the culture that Tanya has established and everyone who's come through the door since. It's pretty special. And everyone who ever gets the call to come back and like, hey, can you help? Says yes, because you know how special it is.
And speaking of that, I mean, obviously not everyone who helped out with Sports Talk could be here today, but I reached out and some of them were able to reach out and help me put together a little something, a little bit of a tribute, if you will. So, former producers of Sports Talk Philadelphia.
Lotus here, class of 2002. I was on Sports Talk Philadelphia in 2002. I now work at Cron 4 News in San Francisco. I'm the breaking news anchor here, so very little sports, but that got me used to being on TV, and it's been great for me. Matt York and Keith Anderson deserve a special shout out. Those two guys were gracious enough to invite me to be on the show in 2002. The deal was I knew this woman who would get them free Botox if they got me on the show. So they still look great, and I wanted to say congrats to the entire LaSalle communication community, and especially the show, Sports Talk Philadelphia.
15 years of Sports Talk Philadelphia. I am old. My name is Keith Anderson. I am one of the original co-hosts of the show. I graduated from LaSalle in 2002. And to think, this show started because Matt York and I really wanted to get to some sporting events, and neither of us had any money. So what's the best way to do that? With the press pass, of course. Since graduating from LaSalle, I interned with the Philadelphia Eagles video department. I worked with the Cleveland Browns video department. And most recently, I just got done working for the last 10 years with Gino Auriemma and the UConn women's basketball team. I also got to travel around the world with him with the USA women's national team. And what an honor it was. I just want to say thank you so much to all of the hosts, all of the behind-the-scenes people, all of the producers, and most importantly, thank you so much to Tanya Ellis for keeping the show alive all these years. Thank you also to Tanya for just all the inspiration she is to college students, especially the comm department. Thank you. I just also want to say, cherish this time with each other. The friendships are what this show is all about. Grant Lotus, another co-host that we added to the show a couple years in, him and I still get together every time we're in each other's neighborhoods. And Matt York and I still see each other every year on an annual camping trip that we go on. And our producer, guys, treat the producers really well. I married ours, Tracy Anderson, and it's been a great last 10 years. So once again, congratulations on 15 years. So happy that this show is still on. What an honor it is to see that happen.
Hey, I'm Meredith Morakovitz, a 2005 LaSalle University grad. I'm currently the clubhouse reporter for the Yes Network, covering the Yankees throughout the course of the season. Sorry I can't be there for the 15-year anniversary of Sports Talk Philadelphia, but clearly the Yankees have kept me pretty busy here in the Bronx. When I look back at my time with Sports Talk Philadelphia, at first I cringed thinking of those initial videos, but really it was a great time in my life. I have to thank LaSalle and Sports Talk Philadelphia for giving me the outlet to pursue my passion. It was really something I look forward to every week, seeing what was going to be on the show, being able to get my opinion out there. And it wasn't just to the LaSalle community. That's a show that's broadcast all throughout Philadelphia and surrounding regions, so really a huge opportunity in the start of my career. I think of the times on the panel with Justin Daniels, who's now working for MLB Network, Dave Murphy, a writer in Philadelphia, as well as others. And we had some heated arguments, some good times, and I have nothing but positive things to say. So I want to congratulate you, Sports Talk Philadelphia, on a great 15-year run. I hope it continues, and a special thank you to Tanya Ellis and LaSalle University for doing this for the students of LaSalle and making it happen as people pursue their dreams.
Hi, this is Ben Rosehart, LaSalle University class of 2006. Right now I'm a sports anchor reporter for KBQC TV in Davenport, Iowa, serving the Quad Cities market. Just want to say thank you to so many people involved at LaSalle TV, whether it was Tanya, Sid, Brother Jerry, all the alumni and students over the years and staff that have helped make it what it is today. And as a former co-anchor and producer of Sports Talk Philadelphia from 2004 to 2006, just want to say good luck the next 15 years and beyond.
Hi everyone, Brandon David out here, sports anchor at WCCB Charlotte. Behind me is the Charlotte Knights Stadium, BB&T Ballpark. They have the AAA affiliate for the White Sox. I'm taking a break in my coverage of the game. I wanted to wish Sports Talk Philadelphia happy 15 years. Wow, can't believe it's been that long. Hope you have a great 15 more years, although you guys there better not be in school for those 15.
Hey Tyler and LaSalle TV, this is David Krasbowski, reporter at PHL 17 here in Philly. Just wanted to give a shout out to Sports Talk Philadelphia for a great 15 years on LaSalle TV. During my time at LaSalle, I was host and producer for 3 years, and it really changed my life, and I wouldn't be where I am today on TV in Philly if it wasn't for LaSalle TV, the Com Center, and Sports Talk Philadelphia. So here's to 15 more great years on the best station in the city of Philadelphia, LaSalle TV.
And there you have it, former STP producers sending their well wishes. Thank you so much, guys. That really meant a lot to send in all those videos. I wasn't expecting, one, those responses, and two, in that fast fashion. So thank you guys very much. So now we move on to what's normally the Fast Five, but due to just timing it of today's show and all, we're just going to do Fast Three. And each of you are going to get the same question. So just a little bit to talk from each of you. Just off the top of your head, like just a favorite like STP memory, maybe funny moment or whatever that just stands out to you from your time here at STP.
Sure, I'll actually harken back to one that was given to us from Tanya, where she talked about our last episode when they actually lampooned us and they made fun of us, which was actually probably one of my favorite episodes. But one of the neat things about that was just the idea to that, because that's really what the spirit of the show was, right? It was just supposed to be fun. It was supposed to be a lot of friends just working together and having a good time, like you said, Casey. And it really harkened back to some folks behind the camera that were really responsible for making sure this happened and happened the right way. And you mentioned names like Dave Murphy and Justin Daniels, who were part of our crew and kind of a few of our first interns at the time. And then Tracy Anderson and Tanya, of course, they were integral in making us look good every week, or I guess close to good. I'm not sure if that's the case. Yes, exactly. So that's probably one of my favorite memories.
Casey?
I have a couple. I guess one that stands out to me is I remember the first year I did the show was the year the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, which obviously we had a lot of content to talk about. It was pretty good timing. Maybe it had something to do with it. I don't know. But I remember that season they started out undefeated through, I want to say 6-0, but I remember early in the year they had a bye week, and I was just livid that Andy Reid gave the Eagles off that week. Like, we're going for a perfect season here, Coach. Like, let's hold off on any weeks of vacation. So I remember when we did our final thoughts, me just laying into Andy Reid because I was an idiot and didn't know any better. And I kind of just remember, actually, I think it was my father saw the show and was like, yeah, don't ever do that again. You sounded really dumb. So that's something. And I remember also we took a road trip our senior year with all the guys who were on the show. We actually were doing stuff for Sportsline as well in Ohio for the A10 tournament. And we got there and our car broke down and we ended up stuck in Ohio for 4 days, even though LaSalle lost on the first night. But that was like one of the best times of our lives. And everyone who was on that trip will always remember it.
Andrew Albert.
Yeah, mine's very similar to that. When Dave Drusbowski, he was Sports Talk, and Mike McCoy and Rachel Finkbeiner, we all went out to Ohio for this, the first 4, and then we made it out to Kansas City, drove out to Kansas City. It was just a really good time doing everything remotely, but sending video back, sending articles back. So it was just a great time with the Sweet 16. We ended up flying out to LA. So it was just one of the best times, I think, of my young career, and it's something I'll never forget.
Yeah. Year for that, you guys, of course, raising all the money, going out to LA, and just seeing the coverage like it was professional coverage, and that opened the door for me too, because Dave trusted me enough that year. The week you guys went away, someone had to host Sports Talk, so little freshman Tyler Harper is over here shaking in his boots. But luckily, I had a good panel, and luckily I had a lot to talk about, and we made it through. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So that concludes our Fast 3, but now. Got to do a little bit of a senior send-off because, well, one, we got a senior here on the desk. This is Andrew's final taping of Sports Talk. So just thank you very much for letting me help you out last year through all the thick and thin that we went through, and for your appearances this year, all the time you made. Like, thank you so much, dude. That really means a lot.
Yeah, you've helped out a lot, and it's been a great ride since freshman year, learning how to crew and helping Dave and everything, and having the show junior year and giving it up to you this year. It's been crazy. It's been awesome. Thank you to Tanya. She's been the best as always. I've managed not to get yelled at that much, which I don't know how. Don't ask me. But
it's because this year you don't spend too much of your time here.
Exactly. That's the key. But
She
no,
yells
it's
because she loves.
exactly.
It's
It's
At
all.
least that's what I hope. I don't know.
That's what she tells us.
well, I mean, yeah, we love you, Tanya. Aw.
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 Yeah, but it's been great. I've loved every second of it.
Yeah, thank you. And lastly, we could see the full screen graphic here. I got to give a special shout out to two of my favorite people, Cody Barr and Bethany Lowe, who have helped me ever since freshman year. It really has meant a lot for them to help little Tyler Harper out. Ever since the day I came and shadowed Sports Talk my senior year, they came over and really helped me out. And through my past 3 years here at LaSalle, they've really been not only great mentors, but great friends. So they're off camera right now, and I'm trying not to get emotional. But thank you guys so much. It really does mean a lot. And please don't be a stranger. Stay in touch. I love that you guys were here, and thank you very much. So yeah, tugging at the heartstrings a little bit, but that does it for Sports Talk Philadelphia for this year. So thank you for tuning in to the 15th anniversary special. But of course, you know the drill. Stay in touch with us on social media, facebook.com/SportsTalkPhiladelphia. You can hit us up on Twitter. Again, every full episode, including this one, on youtube.com/LaSalle56TV. Please be sure to tune in. This episode was really special. So thank you to Andrew. Thank you to Casey. Thank you to Matt for making time out of your schedules to be on the show and put everything together. It really means a lot to celebrate the 15th year of Sports Talk Philadelphia. So thank you guys again for tuning in this entire season. I'm Tyler Harper, but don't worry, next year, me and Tommy McIntyre will be right back here with the rest of the STP crew to give you all the latest sports news, previews, and highlights from Philadelphia. So thank you very much. Have a great summer.